Okay, well, once again, that's fantastic, and I'm the whole. I'm, obviously, that is a whole probably special documentary in itself. Just that COVID unit. I'd heard it. I'd seen it in the EOC kind of updates every day that you guys had created this COVID unit. So it's really interesting to hear how that physically
And so what
happened.
happens if you get sick? If you show up to the hospital needing evaluation, you show up to the back door with respiratory symptoms or a fever that it's not clear that it's
Right.
appendicitis or something.
Yeah.
So not all fevers would go there. It's
Right.
fevers of unknown origin or respiratory symptoms. And so say you go there with your respiratory symptoms and your illness and you're presumed COVID positive until you get a negative testing from the state lab. But
That's
that's
on
all blood
all.
going.
Is that on all people that might end up in the ER if I'm in a car wreck and they drag me in there?
No.
No.
If
Oh,
you have
okay.
respiratory symptoms,
Oh, you have to have symptoms. Okay.
right? You have to have a reason. And so no, the ER is still fully operational, seeing non-respiratory patients. But the COVID unit is used both as inpatient and ER. So I could evaluate you in, say, room 1 of the COVID unit, and that could also then become your hospital bed.
Sure.
We would just change it from an ER gurney, which is lightweight, meant for portability and transport of patients to CT and things, to a full-size hospital bed, and with you would know no difference.
Sure.
Same room, same nurse, same equipment, different bed, more comfortable.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, there's been some, of course, a lot of us that have lived our whole lives, we realize, hey, not only feet away or this long-term care, and you have this very intricate integrated hospital there with clinics and, surgery and so
Right.
forth. So there's a lot of concern by the community, of course, for those long-term residents and of course the staff. So it's good to hear that you guys are all trained up, and because we're hearing, of course, all these horror stories from the rest of the world essentially about caregivers being taken out by this virus. So that was one thing I wanted to kind of communicate in this, and that the community is concerned, obviously, and we appreciate what you guys are.
Well, yeah, volumes in the ER itself are down 50% or so. Clearly, patients are staying away. Either they're not getting sick, or they're not getting injured, or they're just staying away because they're afraid of getting ill or wanting to follow the governor's directive to shelter at home.
Right.
But volumes are down all over. Ketchikan is not New York City.
Right.
And if for your viewers who have been in New York City, it looks remarkably like European cities with their narrow streets and dense populations. And those dense populations are not all necessarily, fit, thin, 20-something-year-old runners.
Yeah.
They have all kinds of a cross spectrum of people who can't socially isolate on a good day. But here I'm looking outside my window at Pennock Island, and my neighbors, are quarter, half a mile away. So we socially distance here every day on a normal day. And so I mean, our curve, our disease curve was really scary early on. We went from 1 to 2 to 5 to 14, but that number hasn't changed last week.
Right.
Barely. A couple of new patients this week.
Are we testing, just on that note? I'm watching the numbers every night that come out. And we've tested a couple hundred people, I believe. I don't know what that is on a percentage basis. Does that seem about right for 13,000 population, or
we've
per
done
thousand?
About 200 that I know of.
Yeah.
There could be other tests through Creekside that I don't have count of. My understanding is the EOC is looking at another avenue. I know they are looking at other avenues to get testing done. And there's lots of different permutations and ways that could happen. That
sure,
we could set up a mobile testing unit on Berth 3 or at Creekside. We could have untrained people get the test or get the swab, or with some training, and then take it to P Self Lab or mail it off. And there's lots of ways that we're looking at doing it. We're also today did the walkthrough with the hospital. How do we operationalize the PACU again to be a PACU and operationalize the OR? I mean, that area was an easy, low-hanging fruit to use because elective surgeries were stopped.
Right.
And so we had a bunch of staff who were well trained and gifted at nursing that were idle and able to work and take care of patients. And so we used that. So, but today some of us took a walk through the old PACU, the old OR area that still has gases and electrical and the things that you need to make an effective nurses station. Mm-hmm. We're looking at maybe making that COVID 2.0.
I see.
If we need it to go
So
forward.
today the governor said, hey, we can go back to doing some elective surgeries. Is that essentially going to happen now up there? Or?
Yes, I think, it's not going to be like flipping the light switch. It's
right.
going to be more likely a phased operational process. And so I think it'll happen. It's just going to need to happen in some steps so that we can safely take care of all the patients, including patients who may have COVID,
sure,
and protect patients who don't have COVID from getting COVID.
So just on a personal level, obviously you're trained for this. It sounds like we couldn't have had a better person directing this. For us people that don't deal with death and disease every day, I get anxious just thinking about it. But what are you at the point now where you're like, hey, we got this COVID unit going. I'm feeling good about that. My staff is trained. We got personal protection equipment. We only have so many cases. I mean, how are you feeling? Are you one that just like, yeah, you just kind of shrug and you just keep going ahead? Or are you kind of on a heightened sensitivity level here?
Certainly a heightened sense of activity level, but I would liken it more to, everybody's using these combat troop analogies, but so if we're going to use the combat troop analogy, I feel like we dug our foxholes and we got our defenses, and now we're waiting to either do battle or go back home.
Yeah.
And one or the other.
And we hope for the latter, that it just.
Battle. We're prepared for an additional 50 patient beds, and we have plans in the hospital for 20 ventilators, 50 beds, in addition to the ones we have. So we could ramp up a tremendous amount.
Yeah.
Besides the ones that we would be able to transfer.
Yeah.
We could ramp up tremendously. But now we need to start thinking about how are we going to deal with ongoing COVID and other respiratory illnesses and keep people safe. So even after COVID goes away this season, it'll probably be back another season. And it's raised awareness that COVID's not the only naughty player out there. Mm-hmm. Influenza is pretty bad too. And some years, the CDC tries to figure out what the best immunization is, but not everybody gets the immunization.
Right.
And not only that, but sometimes the CDC just flat out misses the mark. Sure. And they try their best to make immunization. But there's been a few years in the last 20 years where the CDC really missed it, and accidentally, and through no fault of their own, but it was almost like the entire population was unvaccinated. And, that's when we have these tens of thousands of deaths.
Yeah.
That, 2009 was a tragedy for our country. Mm-hmm. We don't hear much about it unless you are reading old archive news stories, but that was far worse than COVID. COVID's scary because it kills people like you and me. With influenza, we could all wrap our arms around it. Grandma's if she gets it, she's gonna get really sick and maybe die. And if an infant gets it, well, obviously they're tiny, they're at risk. But it's hard to wrap our minds around healthy 40-year-olds getting taken out. That's really scary.
Yeah, and it's and all at once. It seems like it's compounded very quickly in these larger cities, anyway. Where so then you get all these people flooding in ER. It sounds like you guys have done a great job. I know we could probably go on. I could go on listening to you for a while here, and it just means I have to cut out more of this when I go to edit. But is there anything else you'd like to tell the community? You answered a lot of what I already had written down here for questions that to just communicate in this setting.
Well, I think we've covered it. I don't want to sound like a soundbite for Peace Health, but it's so heartening though how the community came together. EOC, the hospital, physicians, and creative thinking of how to solve problems that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And the volunteers on the island. The quilting club and the sewers who made our masks and gowns and came up with patterns to make Tyvek suits and you just don't see that every day, that the community comes together or the landing donating food to the ER because we've been working hard. Just fantastic.
Well, thanks again. Well, I'd like to thank Ed again for this interview. The staff is doing a great job up there. We as a community want to express our appreciation for everything that the hospital's done, and for Ed taking the time to do this interview. Thanks again.